I'd like to call this meeting of the WSESU to order at 6 o'clock. The meeting of the WSESU will come to order. This meeting is a hybrid meeting, which means that some or all of the public body is meeting remotely, and some are meeting physically in a previously noticed location where the public may attend to observe, listen, and participate contemporaneously. Please note that while we will strive to provide means for those attending remotely to participate in the public comment period, there may be technical difficulties or reasons that otherwise prevent or interrupt remote public participation. Therefore, it is important to note that the open meeting law only assures the public's right to participate and comment at a public meeting by attending at the designated physical location as posted in the notice and agenda. If a member of the public or the public body has technical difficulties accessing this meeting remotely, please alert us by email. In the event of a technical difficulty that cannot be resolved, we may continue the meeting if necessary to time and place certain. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting that are not unanimous will be done by roll call vote in accordance with the law. Thank you. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, I will be amending the agenda slightly in that we do not need to approve these warrants and payrolls because we did it last week.
We're ahead of time.
Yes. So welcome everybody, deep in the heart of budget season. And Mark, you are on.
Okay, so last week I presented to this board a concept of a new direction for the orientation of central office moving forward, starting with next school year. And that includes a new position, which I've brought a hard copy tonight for your information. That's what that's written. Scroll down. So the new position, which we discussed last week, and for the board to consider adopting and voting on tonight, would be a position titled Director of Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment. And again, this position would oversee, supervise, and evaluate the curriculum office. We would create two curriculum coordinator positions that we currently have, but really provide some more clarity around the focus of those two positions. So one curriculum coordinator position will be focused on pre-K through 6, curriculum and instruction and assessment. And the other curriculum coordinator would be focused on 7 through 12. And again, be supervised and evaluated by the director, which is a new position. And I think I'm excited about this potential. I think it gives us an ability to do more focused work at a pre-K through 12 level and provide appropriate support with curriculum coordinators focused at the elementary and then again at the middle and high school. So this job description is essentially what I presented last week, but it's a more formal format, which is focused directly on the new position, director, where last week had included the document with the curriculum coordinators, pre-K through 6 and 7 through 12. But what you have in front of you tonight is the new position to hopefully adopt as we move forward in budget development and in planning.
Okay, discussion.
Is there any way someone could email that to me so I can look at it, or is it located on the website somewhere?
I think you got it emailed to you last night, Kelly, or this morning,
Okay, I've looked again.
from Mark.
I can resend it to you, Kelly.
So I have a question.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this is being presented in an SU meeting.
Yes.
And I just want to raise the issue is this an SU position? Is it an SD position? Or is it a combination of both boards that need to consider?
This is an SU
Yes.
position.
Yeah.
Curriculum and assessment comes under the SU bailiwick. I mean, I'd be happy to talk it over with the SD board, but it's definitely in our purview, approve or not approve this.
This is obviously a very important position. I know we have 4 representatives from the SD, but I think that everybody would benefit if you didn't just talk to the SD about it, but if the SD really got this and had time to analyze it line by line and really consider every implication of this. I know we're SU and there's SD
And Vernon.
and Vernon.
Sorry, you gotta say it.
Yeah, I just think that normally we just represent different issues, you know, without deep consultation with the SD. I think this we need to consult with the SD on. That's my opinion.
Okay? Anybody else?
When were you looking to advertise?
I would like to advertise sooner than later, like early in the new year, if there's an approved budget from this board. Earlier we do it, the better the candidate pool is. And the more time we can adjust to how positions kind of evolve. There may be internal interest, which then triggers another opening, and you just never know how these things will play out. So I think the sooner the better.
And just generally, you know, I think we've all been thinking about a new governance model, and this I don't think reflects that. The board isn't even mentioned here, I think. But I would
Jim,
like
can I ask
to
what do you mean by that?
a new governance model, one where the superintendent and the board and the administration work much more cohesively as a team, with shared vision, moral purpose that drive principles that drive us.
I think in the document that I shared last week, there is, in the overall vision of the curriculum office,
Yeah, the shared roles.
there is an
There is.
element of school board relation.
And I know, I saw that, Mark.
Yeah.
And I saw board relations. I think we really need to think more about the board's function here. It's not just board relations, but it's board collaboration and engagement and
As I look at the job description that we've received this evening, I don't think there is, unless I'm mistaken, I don't see any reference to the board here. So,
It's in the
oh, I'm sorry, no, I know it's,
document from last week.
no, I understand that, I see that. But I'm now looking at the very specific job description, the rewrite of it, specifically for Director of Curriculum. And I think it would be helpful to see engagement with the board in this new document.
Just,
We can amend
well,
the job
no,
description.
no. I'm gonna fight on this one. Mark reports to us. His administrative team reports to him. I don't want job descriptions with requirements that members of the administrative team have to, no, I don't like that.
Okay.
That to me is crossing a line,
Okay,
in my opinion.
I have to agree with you, Carrie. I was a little confused. First of all, it's only one position, not 3, definitely. The other 2 exist. I'm happy to talk about this as long as you want, but the longer that we delay on it, the less chance we have of getting a truly awesome candidate. And That is how it works. They report to him, he reports to us.
Okay.
Callie, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. So not having the benefit of seeing what the document is, because I didn't see it in my email. So if you can please send that, Mark, I would appreciate that. But not sort of like just listening to what the 4 board members there are saying. I'm wondering, is there anything in other job descriptions that references the board directly? And is this a change from that? And second, is there something in there that would, I mean, we have a lot of people in the administration who make reports to the board. They do it through a process that involves the superintendent. Is there something in here that could be read that it's referring to that particular sort of process that they should be aware of and be prepared to make reports to the board, such as we had in the SD board last week? We had Bryn Tucker and other people made reports to the board. So is there something in there that would be kind of like that?
Yes, I would say assist with various other projects and tasks as needed. That means if Mark wants a presentation made, he says, tag, you're it, make the presentation.
And I'm accustomed to having more than one presentation over the course of a year from curriculum and assessment, you know.
I mean, I think it's certainly implied that this position, as well as curriculum coordinator positions and special ed directors and special ed coordinators, absolutely have to attend board meetings and work with the board and collaborate with the board through the process that we see on a weekly, bi-weekly basis.
Kelly?
Can I make just one sort of maybe suggestion? If there's a place in there, what was just read, and I don't have a photographic memory or whatever memory that would allow me to recount what was read, is it possible to put such as ... and a few, some of the events that would be included under that category, but not exclude other things?
So like a couple of examples, and then with et cetera, something like that.
I'm not looking at it, so I don't know whether that would actually make sense, but I'm just wondering if that would make sense and if it's possible.
So I think the reason I bring up collaboration with the board is because on the first document we received, which is a description that we received last week with all 3 positions, the gray area at the bottom states very specifically shared roles amongst all curriculum and assessment department. And the first bullet says board relations. So I think that there is an intrinsic relationship between curriculum coordinators, and certainly in the way that it has existed to the present day, and board relations. So I think that's why I'm moving in that direction.
So you're wanting to put that in the job description as opposed to this is provisioning, this is the idea, and this is more or less what will be published, yes?
Well, yes, I think this is in support of Kelly's point that we need some acknowledgement of the relationship, the collaboration with the board.
That would be, would you put that in the job description as one of the, necessary skills?
Sure.
Well, it's not just putting it in the job description, but it's really embracing the concept.
Yeah, and that is in the vision that was presented last week.
But it's not.
This is a specific job description for what the function of the director.
I think I see this as the policy and this as the procedure. And I think, I don't want to get into the procedure. I wanna keep us at the policy level, and then Mark implements the procedure, and if we don't like the procedure, then we see what we need to do. But I guess I see these as, this is a document that we have on file, and if in a year from now there's no collaboration, we get to say, hey, your vision said we're not following it.
Right.
But I feel like you can't put everything in a job description, then they become 45-page manifestos.
I mean, the vision is an official document that
Yeah.
was shared at the board level.
Well, it's funny, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
No, it's funny because when I read the vision, I thought, to me, this is not a vision, this is a job description. And now I'm reading the job description, but it's, yeah, I'm trying to reconcile these two documents. It's a small point, but the fourth point, bullet from the bottom of the job description, provide VCAP district assessment oversight. That's okay, that's essential.
Mhm.
What about panorama data distribution and analysis? Why isn't panorama there?
We could add that.
Kelly, you have your hand up?
No, I just forgot to put it down.
Okay, fair enough.
It should be in your inbox, Kelly. I've shared it with you.
All right, thank you very much.
There's one more thing that strikes me. And that's coordination or communication with the public, with families. I don't see it here. Is that just implied?
I would say so, yeah.
Just a quick question, and I agree with your point, Tim, about the importance of panorama. I think the third bullet down under positional responsibilities talk about the school administrative support of periodic local data review. And I think because we have so many data, under position responsibilities, third bullet, sub bullet, we have
Right,
so
where
many
your
data
comments
points
are.
that sometimes change based on the vendor. I think the intention there was to include systems such as Panorama, whereas the difference with BTCAP is it's a state mandated summative assessment that's a specific one mandated by the AOE each year.
Okay, that's a good point. The CIP plan, right now, we're still talking about the policy. And it could end up that there's a team that this person would lead or collaborate with too. We just don't know. It's, we're still discussing what the CIP policy will be.
I know that both boards are meeting next week. We're meeting next Wednesday. And I realize that a job search of this magnitude needs to occur as promptly as possible. But I would like this to go before the SD board. I mean, somehow or the other, the curriculum coordinator is linked to the SD board.
And Vernon.
Yeah,
I need a button. Like, and Vernon.
So
And Vernon.
so I can only I appreciate that. So and as I say, the SD board and Vernon. If this is
I would just,
Go
it's
ahead,
my
sorry.
responsibility as superintendent, right, to provide information to the board so that we make good decisions for students. In doing that, I routinely ask members of the leadership team to attend all of our meetings. Tonight as a reflection, we have Frank as our business administrator, Brennan is one of our curriculum coordinators, and our entire special education leadership department. Next Monday, special ed department will be reporting out to the Vernon board. So this happens throughout the year at all of our meetings. And really, I should be evaluated on that access to the boards. If there are suggestions for some edits in language, totally open to that. I think I heard Ian make a suggestion.
Well, I'd be happy to talk this over with the SD board next Tuesday, but I don't feel comfortable tabling it any further than that. I think we either have to say yes or no.
So the SD board is meeting Wednesday.
Next week?
No.
No, that's the week
Oh,
after.
I'm so sorry.
But
So
they are
sorry.
meeting.
Right, I'm 1 week
Yeah.
ahead of myself.
Yes, but
Sorry.
they are meeting Tuesday, and then we will meet on Wednesday.
Right,
Kelly,
that's
your
right.
hand is up.
that's right.
It is now genuinely up. Thank you.
Okay.
So if I could send this out to the SD board members, all of them this evening, and ask that they be prepared to come to the Tuesday meeting with any comments or suggestions or et cetera, either email or to come to the meeting with them. And then we could get it, maybe then Vernon could get theirs addressed next Monday. It sounds like they're having a meeting next Monday. The SD could get it addressed on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday, the issue would be good to go. I don't know if that's seems like the obvious choice.
It does, and getting feedback from other board members is a great idea. It's just, we are the only ones empowered to create this position. So it's our vote, but I'd be happy to talk to them about it, absolutely. Especially since we're meeting so soon. Next week. Does that work for everybody?
That's a step forward.
That sounds good to me,
Okay.
yes.
What are the budget implications of this? Have they already been incorporated into the budget? Right?
That's what we reviewed last week.
And was it? Oh, you did put it in there, right? Okay. What would be the protocol? I understand for the director position would be the normal protocol, a search committee and all.
Mm-hmm.
What would be the protocol for the two coordinators, choosing those two coordinator positions?
Same thing, hiring process.
But we already have one.
We have one, Brennan is a curriculum
Yeah,
coordinator.
we're not replacing Brent as far as I know.
And Paul is retiring at the end of the year. So we will have an open director position and an open, if the director position is approved, and we'll have an open curriculum coordinator position.
The one we got before, IT shared responsibility is gradual release. What does that mean?
So Paul, as you know, Paul does a lot of work around technology and IT systems. So an element of that would be in the director position, but also shared.
Shared, you mean
with curriculum coordinators.
and this year, next year, and the year after?
Yeah.
So this would be another kind of a part-time consultancy?
No, that would be part of the vision that was provided last week. We will likely ask Paul to engage in some work with us as we work on a transition so that it is smooth. But that's down the road. We first have to see, how the positions are filled.
This part to me was all the things that Paul
Yeah.
did over the years that never got into a job description, because it's not really his job, but he was good at it. And so everybody said, hey, Paul can do that. So I appreciate that you guys are trying to keep track of the amorphous stuff that, you
Yeah,
know.
the idea is to provide more clarity to the coordinator positions, clarity and oversight, but then also not lose all of those technical responsibilities that over time Paul has taken care of. Like I said last week, his job, what he did as a curriculum coordinator in 2000 is vastly different from what he does in 2023.
And website maintenance, would that also include development?
Yeah. Yeah, the hope is our website continues to evolve.
Last question.
Absolutely, as long as
For
you
me.
want.
What is the time frame, the crunch on the time frame? We just got this last week, and now we're saying we have to really get going quickly because
Hiring season.
it's hiring season,
Yeah.
yeah, but again, what's the time frame?
Well, the SU is going to potentially vote to adopt the SU budget. I think, is it the 20th, right?
On the 20th, yeah.
So this would have to be incorporated in the budget that would be adopted.
If we were to not approve it, it could be taken out afterwards. It's just, we don't want to add it in.
And then it would start with the new academic year?
July 1st.
It would start July 1st.
Oh, with the fiscal year.
Yep.
It's a year-round position.
So anything else? Because we can table it till next week. All right. So this is tabled until next week and until we get to speak to the rest of the SD board. Thank you for.
And Vernon.
And Vernon. You're right, we need a button.
We need a button. Getting a button.
You're getting a bell. Yes.
Okay, so moving on, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of November 29th, 2023.
So moved.
Thank you, Deborah. Any additions, corrections, deletions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? And the minutes are approved. And now we get to skip all the warrants and payrolls that we approved last week. And we are moving on to budget discussion, special education, and allocation methods.
Okay. Well, I could give you a brief overview, but fortunately, we have a great team here today that will do most of the talking. So I'll just give you a little fiscal overview and then turn it over to Tate and the team. So the document, the hard copy I've provided you was emailed last week. Just yesterday, we had another group meeting and we did a relatively small revision to the pre-K program. So we'll highlight that. And actually the document I've given you includes that revision. So overall, in this report, when you go to the back page, you'll see that the proposal is up 1.5 million. For special education services, pre-K through school age, proposal is $19,003,000 on page 41. And that's for the fiscal year, starts July 2024, ends June 2025. So that compares to the current budget of $17,475,000, which, as you see, translates into a proposed budget up 8.7%. We've talked a lot about pressures on inflation, fiscal increases, an average salary increase of around 4.4%, health insurance 16%, and with that, a growing need, a significant growing need for services. So I think Tate and his team's done a really great job having the proposal that they have before you as being a fiscally responsible proposal in this environment. A couple more points of reference for you. The first 4 pages are the revenues. We are now getting close to having the EDM statistics that we need to allocate costs. So our next meeting we will have that, and the revenue picture will be completed. Page 5 is the beginning of the expenditures. And this is in our kind of standard fashion. Oh, and by the way, I can Zoom. Do we have folks on Zoom?
We do have a couple of folks on Zoom.
Let's see, if you want, I'll share my screen.
That'd be great.
Okay. Okay, there we go. I was saying the format, let's see if I can get the scroll bar, there it is. On page 5 is the beginning of the expenditure budget. It is presented by site, and our first school site is Academy. So the very last line on page 5 is the beginning of the expenditure proposal. So I'll just kind of highlight the school programs. That's the way we organize our work teams. And the first data set are school age, and they are locally funded programs. So all of these costs that we'll see are school age and locally funded. So for example, just kind of scrolling through the report, we go to page for the total on Academy, page 9, and you see Academy budget, current year 2.9 million, proposed year 2.4, down 495,000. We if folks have questions, we can get into some of the details, but what Tate has done is he's broadened the assignment for what was formerly the STEP program, and that's about $1 million in costs that were in Academy. And the STEP program was really, Tate will elaborate much more on this, but was designated for a smaller cohort of students. And Tate and the team are expanding that at the elementary level so that it aligns with Act 127, where they are working with a larger group of students. And so Academy has $1 million removed. That's why that says negative 495 on page 9. But then if you were looking at the detail, you would see that their share of that Brattleboro town district-wide program, their share is put back, and it's about 315,000. So with that, Academy is actually not that far out of line with the kind of the typical investment that we're seeing, an additional 6 to 7%. Overall, it averages out to be 9%. You're gonna see just the opposite. Academy's down. So when you look at Green Street and you look at Oak Grove, which we'll get to here in a moment, you'll see these very large increases. It's the reverse side of taking money out of Academy and putting costs at the site level. And that's intended to help, again, be accountable for our investments and be able to help this team manage work groups at site levels. So the high school starts on page 9, and that continues through the report on page 14. And I'll scroll on that as well here to the Zoom. And you can see the high school up sort of the typical or very close to the average, just a little under 8%. They are 7.3%, 7.1 million proposed budget, up from 6.6 million in the current year. You can see on the bottom or in the midsection of page 14 is Dummerston. So again, this information is organized the same way you see your school district budgets, right? We have our instructors first, and within that group of financial statistics, you see salaries, benefits, and then you see services and supplies. Okay, all of these formats follow that chart of accounts that we've talked about several times, required by the agency of ed. So Dummerston, up 31,000 on a small budget. That's a large percent change, 9.5%. So that's a little bit higher percent change than the overall budget, but it reflects needs identified for next year at the Dummerston School site. The Guilford School starts at the bottom of page 15, and that continues to page 18. And you see that proposal up 57,000, and that represents a 13% increase. And again, when we have our small schools, a single teacher benefit plan can make a large percent change. Guilford does have some new program needs as well that account for that increase. Putney starts on page 18, and Putney has a significant increase as well. That shows on page 20, up 175,000 from a proposed budget of 577 this year. So 577 going to 752, and Tate will probably speak to that increase, but it has to do with some staffing needs. And then Vernon on page 20. Scroll to Vernon. And you see the total Vernon budget is on page 22. You can see on page 22 of the $188,000 increase, right there on the very top of the page, 125 of that is in tuition. So that explains most of the increase. You can see that carry change from fiscal year 24, 195,000 projected tuition, next year 320,000. Oak Grove is next on page 22, and this is where I had indicated you'd see a large increase. You see it going from 228 to 492, up about double, and that is attributed to bringing in what was formerly in the academy school as a district-wide expense, the specific investment for the former STEP program that was just aggregated amongst the 3 Brattleboro towns. So that's why you see an increase. And then
Can you say that one more time, please?
so chart of accounts, going back to the requirement, the way we capture and record information. When the STEP program was created, it was created to serve 3 schools on more of a flexible basis, and always based on student need and the IEPs and what the services required. So when you have a shared cost, then it's recorded in what's called a district-wide category. The code is 51, as opposed to a specific grade level. Pre-K is 0-1, elementary is 3-1, 1-1. That's all in that nice green sheet we were sharing and looking at. So elementary is 1-1, secondary is 3-1, district-wide is 5-1. All of these costs were assigned, these $1 million in costs were assigned to the district-wide expense accounts when the STEP program was created back early on in the formation of the Windham Southeast School District, 2020. But over time, it's become clear, and now particularly with Tate as our director, and with Act 173, a lot has changed in the way in which scope of work is assigned to special educators. And this reflects recognizing that of the $1 million in services that investment is oriented toward, it's clear that we have building assignments for those folks. They're specifically working in Green Street, in Oak Grove, and in Academy. It's no longer a group that flexes their itinerant services, over the course of the year. So, whenever we have that kind of clarity, we always record costs at a site level, and that's what we're talking about.
Okay.
So it's not actually changing anyone's position or where they're which school they're working at. It's just being a little bit more specific about that program exists at each site.
So that's Oak Grove, and then we go right into Green Street. You see a similar impact there on page 24, where it's a significant increase, and those are those offsets that we were saying. Remember, Academy was down $500,000, and these are up $500,000, so that's kind of balances itself out. And then we have the remaining district-wide costs on page 24, and that's the intensive services programs at the elementary level. So you see that on page 25. We have a total down there, $892,000, and you can see that that's what we mean by district-wide. It's not assigned to a specific site. The intensive services are shared among multiple sites. You also see within this group of accounts our speech language, our psychologist, our nurse. That's on page 26, 27. Our occupational therapist, physical therapist, page 28, 29. These are vital services for meeting our children's IEP requirements. And then on page 30, there's our local investment. We're going from current budget $15,316,000 to a proposed budget of $16,007,000. So the local budget's up 9%. And scroll here on our Zoom or zoom to that page 30. So the balance of the report is the grant, not the entire balance, but much of the balance of the report is the grant-funded programs for school age programs, and again, it's by site and then school age, and then on page 38, we turn our attention to the pre-K programs. And actually, pre-K starts a little bit before that. Let's see. Pre-K starts on page 35. When you get familiar with the state's organization of financial information, now you see that second set of digits there goes from 51s. We were just talking about that on the far left in the account code to 01. 01 is pre-K.
Sorry, Frank. Can I go back to page 24? The paraeducator for intensive services. Why is that reduced
46,146? For the intensive services?
Yeah.
That's a direct reflection of particular students they anticipate will be attending the program next year. And generally, those are one-to-one assignments in the intensive needs program.
So what's the change?
It's on one staff member.
And it would be the student.
Because a student transitioned somewhere else.
Okay.
Part of it is also the, we had an intensive services program at Oak Grove last year. Previously, we've had that program. And because of our integration facilitator, it used to be Carrie Dix, now Emily Fennis, we're finding that we're able to have better rates of inclusion for kids that otherwise, previously we've had a separate program for that had intensive needs that we weren't meeting well in our schools. And now with the work of Emily Fennis doing lots of consulting around kids with diverse needs, we were actually able to end that program last year. Kids moved on to the middle school, and we were finding that same profile of kid was actually being better met in their home school with their peers and just with additional support.
And what is her position again?
The integration facilitator.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not a new position, but it was.
Just the set of lines above on page 24.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Whitney.
Yeah.
So page 35 is where our pre-K program proposal is that Randy is our coordinator for, and this is where you would see on page 35, right below where you see the large numbers associated with the subtotal 17,607,000. You see that next group of accounts. That's the beginning of the pre-K, and EEE is Essential Early Ed. It's still the acronym used by the Agency of Ed for our pre-K students or children who qualify for an IEP. And the change that you see here that is different than what we had sent out is just yesterday I met with this group along with Mark, and we added a teacher on that first line. That's why that line is up more than the typical 4 or 5%. And then we also added a paraeducator, and that's intended to allow us to operate a pre-K classroom at the Canal Street school building next year. And we would expect that to serve 15 students and offer a really nice program. So maybe Randy will elaborate on that, and I'll just say another 30 seconds here of overview and then turn it over to this group. Pre-K in total, the core program that Randy manages, staff of 14 folks. That's on page 36. 937,000 is the the core program serving approximately 70 children. And then we have the speech language on page 37 that also supports that work. And then the following pages represent some relatively small grants that we have that's also support pre-K education. So that's the overview, and maybe if I could turn over to Kate and the team.
Well, I'm happy to be meeting with you to talk about this. We're excited about the changes that we're making. Each of my coordinators has specific things to share about pre-K, elementary, and the middle high schools, our secondary program. We continue to focus on inclusion and increasing our inclusion rates by 10%. That's not blind inclusion. We do that individualized and making sure that we're meeting students' individual needs. That's our mandate with special education, to provide a FAPE in a least restrictive environment. We're doing a little bit of adjusting of staffing, but it's not massive. It's more fine tuning, adding or changing assignments in ways that make sense, such as continuing our case management model, and that is that we hired 2 case managers at the elementary level as well as a middle school case manager, so that they're responsible for working on scheduling, facilitating meetings, and getting all of the documentation completed, while our special education teachers are focused on direct instruction. So able to spend their time and resources on really providing effective instruction. We hope with this to be attractive for more teachers to want to work in our district. We're doing much better than our neighbors. It continues to be a critical shortage area to find quality special educators. All of our skilled and staff with high expertise, our related service providers, our speech pathologists, our school psychologists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, and board certified behavior analysts. That move with the STEP program and separating them out was that each program is a little bit different, and it does allow us to focus in and look at our effectiveness and our bang for our buck for hiring board certified behavior analysts, even social workers, and really looking at how they're helping us meet our capacity, helping our students to be available and regulated to receive the high quality instruction that we want to give them. So I guess maybe we would start with preschool and work our way this way, actually, just to talk about some of the changes that are happening. There's some exciting ones.
Yeah, there are. Very little changes to our early childhood special ed team from last year. We're proposing adding just a paraprofessional, half-time paraprofessional. Right now, up until this year, we've had 4.5 paraprofessionals. We've added we had to hire another one this year to meet the needs of our students. We have a person who is half-time paraprofessional, half-time intake coordinator. And she has been supporting our office in a number of ways. And so we're proposing to remove her half-time para position and have her be intake coordinator, like administrative assistant kind of work to streamline the work in our office for ordering mileage, MOUs, which would support other members of our special ed team in their ability to do their job to their, to the highest fidelity. And so because she was a half-time paraeducator, and we're adding a 5th paraeducator, it's really only adding a half time. Does that make sense? I'm explaining that right. So those are the changes to our core team. All other things aside from costs that go up all the time are staying the same. And then I think what's really exciting is the proposal around the adding a pre-K classroom, and there's a lot of reasons why this is incredibly important, since most of our brain is developed by the time we're 5, so we really need to invest in early education. But we are also, there's also an equity issue in our system here because our outlying towns, aside from Vernon, have public pre-Ks in each of their schools, and Brattleboro has one public pre-K, and it's a collaboration with Head Start, so half of those slots are Head Start slots and half of them are public pre-K. So we're really not providing the same level of access to public pre-K in Brattleboro that we are in our other towns. And that's paired with Act 176. There's so many numbers. What?
173.
No, that's a different one.
That's a different one.
Yep, Act 76, sorry, no one. Act 76, and which has changed subsidy rates and some other things related to childcare, but there's a part of that bill that has required a committee to look at requiring all towns in the state to provide public pre-K for all 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds not enrolled in kindergarten, in public pre-K. So that report is, I'm a little bit confused by this because the report is due December 1, 2025, it says, but also this needs to be in place for the 25-26 school year. So I don't understand that. I think it might be a typo on their part, but it might have been 2023 that this report was due. Prior to seeing those numbers, was under the impression was due this month. So that all of the details of that have not been shared because they don't have them all yet. But we are looking at every town in the state being required to provide public pre-K for all 4-year-olds. How that's done, some of those details, like I said, I don't have yet, so. That this is also, we're exploring that option, and this is an opportunity to get ahead of the game here, be more equitable across our district, and we're teaming to create a inclusive early childhood classroom, so with support from a special educator, slots for kids on IEPs. We have a number of kids that either start the year or come in during the year without a school program, and then they have an IEP, and they may not have anywhere to go because the preschools are full, the community-based preschool, because we have a mixed delivery model right now with both public and private community-based programs. And so this would afford us the opportunity to get these young kids in school as soon as possible, and then provide I'm teaming with Whitney in thinking about how this is going to really look on the ground and how we can ready our students so that they're developing their regulation, their other social emotional skills, and which includes school readiness, the things like sitting, attending, and participating appropriately, accessing their curriculum. So those are the big changes to ours. So what we're able to do with that classroom, what our thoughts are, is that we'll be utilizing staff in the district already to support that, and it's really just looking at 2 new positions right now, a lead teacher and a paraeducator.
How do you get the word out that there's this opportunity? Years ago, I did a little work for the census, so I went to some pretty poor areas where you can just tell that life was so chaotic that they didn't read the newspaper, they didn't think of contacting the central office for opportunities. What kind of proactive communication do you have with, how do you identify families that really need it that might not know it's available now?
That's a great question. I mean, we'll have work to do around that. Some of them are students that are already on our caseloads, or they come into our program, and so that's one way. But I mean, how we advertise, I guess, all of our public pre-K slots. I have a vision that it is a mixed group of students, not all low income. We had a Head Start program. I'd like to see it more kids spread out across the district. And so in our other schools, we do a lottery system. And so, there's through the newspaper, that's work that we have to do.
Yeah, we'll have to build a strategy for that. But essentially, we're anticipating that it will be mandated on the very near future from the state that we provide public pre-K in public schools. And we also know it's a really good thing to do, and that we should be exploring that. And thinking about one public pre-K in Brattleboro to support 6 elementary cohorts, there's definitely an equity there in comparison with our outlying town schools. So now that we have pretty much full control of the Canal Street building, we're looking at this as an incredible opportunity to build a pre-K center. But we also know that we're not going to do it overnight. So our focus for this upcoming school year is to really do it well in establishing one additional pre-K classroom at Canal Street School. And hopefully that will become a model for exploring additional cohorts in future years. So we're looking at the building needs of Canal Street School so that it's suitable to provide proper pre-K experience. And then we're also looking at staffing, again, with the goal of doing that really well to support one additional cohort, the development of one new additional cohort in Brattleboro for the next school year. And Brandy's been leading the way, and Whitney has as well. Frank has supported it through the business office. It's been a really great collaboration, and I think we're at the early stages. But if we get the support of a vote in this budget for those 2 new positions, that will really trigger the next phase in the planning, which would include a marketing campaign and promoting the concept to the greater community.
And it is going to be mandated. It's
Yeah.
what that will look like. We don't know the details yet, but the state has been pretty clear that we're going to be providing public pre-K for 4-year-olds. And I want to just add that Carrie Beebe, our universal pre-K coordinator, is already, she's working as well as a really great collaboration. So she's already a position that will be supporting this work as well.
Yeah, and the very real challenge that we have in our Brattleboro elementary schools is we don't have space. So if we're really mandated to open up a pre-K classroom at Green Street School, there's literally not a classroom available or space available. Same with Academy, pretty much same with Oak Grove at this point. So that's why we're focusing on revitalizing the Canal Street building to create a pre-K center for Brattown.
How'd you get the space at Oak Grove?
How did we get the space at Oak Grove?
Yeah,
We had the space.
it was just empty?
Yeah, we had a classroom that could accommodate a pre-K. That's why Oak Grove was chosen when we developed that.
Something related to this initiative that we're looking into. Parking's always been a chronic problem at Canal Street, and we know that has to be addressed. So we're looking into that. There's a small playground at the entry, right at the intersection of Canal Street and the street that goes down to the Sososimo lumber area. We've observed and asked folks, including Deb Gass, who's been there for many years, at that site. It's just not utilized at all. It hasn't been for years and years. However, it was dedicated as a playground several years ago. So we'll look at the implications of how we might be able to rededicate any of the improvements that are there to the Canal Street School site right on the campus to respect that event. But that is a very significant opportunity to address the parking issue. It wouldn't solve the entire thing, but if that could be made accessible for parents to drop kids off, pick kids up, and because the actual Canal Street School is a very constrained site. It's a vertical wall, goes up probably 15 feet, and then a very kind of a steep forest land, and then on either side are neighbors right adjacent. So just wanted to mention that. It's it'll be a public process, but that is part of the property. It's not town property. It is the Windham Southeast School District property.
It's really an incredible opportunity to have that Canal Street building, because even if there were space at the elementary schools, there's a lot more to it. The rules and regs around early childhood are still governed by both the Child Development Division and the Agency of Education, and there are different rules than there are for kindergarten and up. And so this is a space that has already been used for preschool, and we're doing the legwork around any needed
What's the
changes.
address? I'd like to drive by to see it.
112 Canal Street, I believe.
You know where Googers is?
Yeah.
It's across from Grazier's.
Oh,
It's a big historic.
Go to
It's
Googers
been there,
and turn around.
It's been in the school for a long time.
And get a creamy while you're there.
Quite, it's very beautiful.
It was built in the late 1800s, early 1900s. It's all stone. It's a beautiful structure. I think in the maybe somewhere around 2009, 8-9, there was a major renovation of the facility, upgrading the HVAC systems, which are now kind of obsolete, but we're addressing that. And then, but the bell tower, beautiful bell tower, was really starting to depreciate, so that was restored, and it's in great shape.
And our team is currently using the space to run play groups and support our students on IEPs who are not enrolled in programs, either by personal choice for the family or because there isn't something available for them. So that's been really exciting as well.
And I'll just say, as the elementary coordinator, I'm so excited about that, thinking about the needs of our kindergartners coming in, and making sure that all of our kids have access to preschool. It's so critically important.
High quality preschool.
Yeah.
From the elementary lens, I've just been thinking about this a lot, and I realized this was a really different process this year for me than last year, when I'm sitting down and don't really know all of what I'm looking at, and last year everything was so new, and just really appreciating knowing so intimately all of the people that are behind these numbers, and really with this year, my focus, my vision, my mission is entirely around literacy for our kids. I want all of our kids to learn to read and to be functional readers, and I think that's the most important thing for them moving out into the world, and their access to jobs and to opportunities for themselves. And that's really what's driving everything that I'm doing, to the point that I've really reframed my day, in that if I've done something that's impacted a kid's literacy or a teacher who's working with a kid, like, it's a good day. Whatever else happened in the day, if we worked on literacy and we did something meaningful, I'm good. And so to that end, I've done some presentations around the Right to Read documentary for the district, and then also for our leadership team recently. We've been looking at, collaboratively with principals, looking at a specific cohort in their school and layers of support for kids, and how can we make sure that our kids are getting what they need in order to read. Also to that end, I've been thinking about how can we be more creative in making sure our special educators are spending their precious energy and expertise and time on teaching reading and becoming experts in teaching reading. And that, to that end, has really been the case manager model for me. That's where that drive behind that model, that's kind of how I got on board, is this is gonna help reading. And so this year we have, at the elementary level, we have 2 case manager positions, one at Academy School, full-time, with, it's about 75 kids on her caseload, and one at between Green Street and Oak Grove, which is just over 80 kids on her caseload. They're huge numbers. They're really important and very hard jobs. But what it's allowing is for special educators to really focus on teaching kids. I was curious a couple of months into school, like, how is this being received? And so I put out a survey at those 3 schools to principals, special educators, board certified behavior analysts, speech language pathologists, classroom teachers that I knew that had already like worked with the case managers. I think that's most of it. Tried to get a broad audience to see, how is this model working for you and your school and for your kids. And 87% of people who responded recommended expanding those positions if possible. So that was really, pretty strong evidence for me that this system is helpful for our kids and for our teachers. And so the move that I'm proposing in this budget is using a currently unfilled Vernon special educator position and actually pulling that apart into a half-time Vernon case manager and half-time Putney Central School case manager. This is something that I've talked with the Vernon special educators and actually have talked about at the whole staff level at Vernon about, because it is a change for them, but it would also mean taking the way that we've been able to keep 3 full-time Vernon special educators is by having them maintain the case management for out-of-district kids at Pioneer. And so that would be taken off of the plates of the special educators who are teaching. They wouldn't need, to have that piece, and they wouldn't have any of the case management piece. To be clear, they're still attending, special educators are still attending meetings. The piece that they've wanted to really maintain is writing the specific goals in the IEP for kids, which I think is great, but they're not having to do, the whole contacting and setting up the meeting. They're not having to facilitate the meeting. They're not having to do the paperwork prep beforehand or gathering all the paperwork afterwards. They're not having to do all the paperwork involved in evaluations for kids. And so it's really taken this huge kind of compliance piece off of their plate. And what I've heard is from multiple special educators is this is going to allow me to stay in special education rather than looking for an AST kind of a position. And so that's really my end goal, is to keep people in special education and make it as attractive as possible so that their jobs feel doable and we can have high expectations and outcomes for our kids and really work with special educators on the instruction that they're delivering.
It's been a really great system change to have a very limited number of special educators who are interested in the paperwork side of case management and the organization side, literally freeing up hours of time for all of the other special educators to focus on direct instruction with students. Really applaud Whitney's vision for that and how we approach that this year. And the feedback that we're getting certainly supports extending that vision in our outlying schools.
So next year, the hope, would be Vernon and Putney would have that. Knowing that right now, Guilford and Dummerston, their caseloads are they're smaller. If you look at the ratios, they're smaller. They're more, that paperwork piece is a little more manageable. Maybe that's something that we look at for them in the future, but I want to be thoughtful and be mindful. And these are positions that we were able to actually, they're not additional positions. The program that I talked about at Oak Grove, the intensive services program there, because we didn't need that program anymore, we were able to use that position as a case manager position. And then we took another position from Green Street that was a step intensive case manager position that was working with a really small group of kids, and actually blew that out into a whole case manager position and somebody that's working with, paperwork piece for lots of kids. So that's a little, that's what I got.
Yeah, I definitely want to piggyback on positive feedback about the case manager model. It's working at BAMS. It's really popular with the teachers, and we want to expand that to the high school, which is why we don't have much change in our personnel numbers, because we're going to take a vacancy that we've had for a reading specialist that we've had 0 applicants for since the summer, and are probably unlikely to fill, and use that to hire a case manager. And then I'd like to build out the capacity of our existing reading specialists to be able to service more students and to be able to serve them across. Right now they're only working grades 9, 12, so we aren't providing enough reading support at the middle school, and so we're looking at ways to align schedules so that we can share those resources across both schools. Also looking at our CIP goal of increasing 80% of students spending 80% of their time in general ed settings. So by building the capacity of our teachers who are doing that kind of push-in model, building both their capacity and the general ed teachers' capacity to be able to meet the needs of those students in those classrooms so that we're not pulling them out. And then we could not have so many kids, coming out of the classroom for other courses. Then we could repurpose those special educators to lots of other programs. I mean, we've had foreign language teachers are like, hey, how do I help my special ed students? There aren't a lot of them who are taking foreign languages, but we'd love to be able to support them. So, taking some of those pull-out programs and being able to go into some more of our elective courses, foreign languages, stuff like that would be kind of next steps once we get kind of our current steps down.
So you've heard our team here refer to some staffing. Just draw your attention to this document here. We actually talked about this I think back in November 29, our first SU meeting. But they're referring to staffing and student statistics. If you'd like another copy, we have them. I think I passed them around earlier. Just as you've heard, the need has continued to grow. The top data set there refers to our students identified with an individual education plan going from 381 last year to 438 this year. And I understand next year we're projecting about 500 students. Is that right? Something like that.
It hasn't changed. Okay.
Yeah.
I got
it.
It was from November 8th.
Yeah. And then as Whitney was talking about, the staff utilization is something that the team looks at carefully, and that it is a statistic. It doesn't take into account the individual IEPs, and of course that's going to create quite a variance from one building to another. But as Whitney mentioned, the Dummerston group is less of our caseload. You see that on the ratio in that lower data set. The Brattleboro school is 12.12 average caseload per special educator currently, versus Dummerston 7.5 students per teacher. So we look at that as we develop budgets and make sure that we're fully utilizing our excellent staff.
And just to note within that, it identifies that there's been over 60 students added to our overall caseload, so that we are up over 500 students that we're supporting district-wide.
And none of these, this data set does not include early childhood special education.
That's right.
students.
This is school-age students, and yeah, we do want to capture that the pre-K. data as well.
And preschool always tends to start light and end very heavy every year, so we have to have capacity to meet those needs as the year goes on.
I think that's our presentation for the evening, unless, did we miss anything? Okay.
Questions? Comments?
Well, could you say again, why is it easier to find a case manager rather than a special ed teacher?
Sure. Me, right? Okay. I didn't know. Yeah, reading specialists are far more rare than general special ed teachers, who are already rare. So you can get just about any special ed teacher and move them right in, and they can start doing case management. It's part of their normal education. But a reading specialist who is really trained in all of the techniques for literacy is a lot harder to find. Yeah, so it's a matter of trying to just be more pragmatic about the ones that we have, using them and expanding them. And then taking load off of our other special ed teachers and growing their capacity to do more literacy instruction in the classroom as well.
Right, it's really specializing the role, and it's not meant for everyone. Lots of teachers would say, I don't want that paperwork piece, and so we're finding it very competitive. They're being attracted to us because we can remove that burden from them.
Yeah, but is that sustainable? Can you, year after year, find somebody interested in doing the paperwork type?
Well, we hope so.
Yeah.
They like it so far.
Yeah.
I mean, the people that apply for those positions know, what they're getting into.
Right.
And are liking that work.
Oh,
It's
God,
a
I would
very-
hate that.
Yeah, not everybody likes it, but it's, when my team does both, a lot of our special educators do both, and like what Mindy was saying about being able to, and Kevin, like 100% of your time being on instruction is amazing versus also trying to schedule and fit in all the meetings and meeting all the timelines that we have to meet and doing the evaluations, and so it's, I think, and then some people are really interested in paperwork and are really good at it and good at meeting those compliance
And by
requirements.
paperwork, you mean state mandated?
Yes.
Documentation.
IEPs, doing evaluations, writing plans.
Yeah.
And that's what's helpful, like this year, there's been new procedures with Act 173, we've had new evaluation plans rolled out, based on that, and so when big changes like that happen, now, instead of making sure
Everybody.
25 people are doing it correctly, and we're not like missing any dotted I's or crossed T's, I'm talking to 3 people, and that's gonna cover almost
Yeah.
everybody.
I also think sustainability wise, it kind of gives teachers a little bit of flexibility for if they want to continue to work at the school, but they're kind of getting a little burned out, or they've had some bad experiences during the year, and they're just like, hey, I need to be away from this group of kids for a while. I want to do something a little different. They can go do case management for a couple of years, and then they're like, okay, I miss working with kids, and they can go back in.
Mm.
It kind of gives us the ability to rotate staff into different positions to give them a fresh look at, or kind of a fresh set of responsibilities, because the job's tough.
This is related, I'm sure you heard about Bellows Falls High School principal, sounding the alarm about kids entering high school without knowing how to read. We can't help but think, what's the situation in our district? Do you have what was your reaction to that?
Yeah, I think that, between the curriculum and assessment office and our office, we're talking about reading scores a lot. We're really concerned about the state of our kids, and you can see here that there's an increase in the number of kids on IEPs. There's a significant need, and that's why that is one of our 3 CIP goals for the year. That's why we're doing all of the work that we're doing around, you know, the viewing of the right to read and the professional development that happens around literacy, because that's a goal that we know we need to hit, as we need to get at least 10% more of our kids proficient in reading. It's a problem.
It's another reason why we want to specialize coordination of curriculum and create clarity around a focus of pre-K through 6 elementary, and then a more support and more clarity around 7 through 12, which frankly we haven't had.
And it's why we are passionate about, you know, increasing our public pre-K, because we have control over the quality of the programming and curriculum, and this would afford us the opportunity to provide support around curriculum development, you know, curriculum with preschool, and that we can, and I'm passionate about literacy also. In early childhood, I'm passionate about social emotional development, and that's what gets them ready to be able to learn when they get to the next stage of school. And so I think we're really looking at this from a layered approach, from systematic approach. Yeah.
Great question.
Anybody else?
And so when you talk about literacy, you're being very specific about reading. And I presume mathematics is a part of this as well.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Not to leave out math. Math is very important.
Right.
That's just, and I'm just, you know, me personally, I think that having a really clear focus and a clear mission and vision is important, and that's, you know, in alignment with our district CIP. And you can only, while it's important to focus on lots of things, take our time and demand our attention and require our focus, it's also, I think, helpful to have like a narrowed and clear priority, because otherwise things can get watered down, if you will. And not to say that we should deprioritize math, that's not what I'm saying. But I think as a district focusing on, how can we hit that literacy goal that we've set for ourselves, and that would feel really good.
Yeah. And you can't do math
if you
can't read.
No, I
So-
realize that. Every
Yeah.
equation is a full sentence
Right.
with a verb in there.
Yeah.
So there was presented to us a couple of years ago a pilot program, both in terms of literacy and mathematics. And I know that was being encouraged in every school site. So I think what we heard recently is that it exists now in every school. And that includes BAMS.
They're piloting illustrative math.
BAMS is implementing elective math this year. And they are piloting the EL, one module of the EL literacy program this year. At a minimum, I believe the 8th grade is teaching all of that in its entirety. There's just a training offered. And so they're following the same trajectory that the K through 6-8 schools were following, just like 1 year later on the stair step.
So what will it look like at BAMS next year?
The hope is that they'll be doing what the rest of the schools are doing this year, which is implementing 3 of the 4 modules that are embedded within EL in their year 2 implementation.
So when you say 3 of the 4 modules, does that mean 3/4 of students, or do you mean, is it
all students will get, so the structure of the EL literacy program is there are 4 modules throughout the year. It's a pretty heavy lift in terms of implementation for teachers to learn the curriculum, and also for students to learn the routines that are embedded with the curriculum. And so it's quite a heavy lift to do all 4 in the first, in the first go. And so the ask of schools has been to try 1 module the first year of implementation. The second year would be trying 3 modules, and then the third year, all 4 modules.
So as a school tries 1 module, that means that module is being presented to 100% of the students in the given school?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And this also, I just want to confirm, this also exists at BUHS? These 2 programs?
They have their own scope and sequence per department. And that is something that'll be a great benefit to having the coordinator at a secondary level to provide some resources and guidance.
The IM program does have modules at the high school level. And I have seen some communication, especially after the recent accreditation report. One of the, conversations that was had is really working toward a coordinated curriculum as well at the high school, which is different. It's not just like, well, every 10th grader all does this program. It's much more specialized and nuanced. But I hear a big goal at the high school is working across the departments for a coordinated curriculum, working it vertically as well between the middle and high school for some vertical alignment as well, and really looking to deepen the work along with proficiency-based learning requirements. So I think that's a big piece of the work and the recommendations that have come from the recent accreditation process that I hear that the high school is really excited to take on.
Yeah, and I
But
think
it's a little different than these, like, here's a packaged curriculum, go
Right.
use it with all of your
Right.
11th graders. Yeah.
And I think at the Guilford, at our last MLSS presentation, you saw some really good movement happening at the high school and developing coordinated systems, but there's certainly a long way to go.
Okay. Anybody out in Zoom land have any questions? That would be a no. Thank you so much, all of you, very much.
Thank you.
So, moving on. Under old business, we have the following policies presented for a second reading. School crisis prevention and response, E15 security cameras, and F9 student substance abuse prevention. And they're presented for a second reading. Mark, do you have any kind of updates for us on food service at BUHS?
Not any additional updates from last week's.
I was just hoping maybe somebody had reported back
Yeah,
about improvements, changes.
I'll gather some feedback for next week.
My kids are happy.
Your kids are happy. That's a report. Thank
That's a
you.
report. My kids are happier.
We also did have a check-in, I had a brief check-in with Susan Grabowski, our food service coordinator, today, and she said that, the immediate issues that we asked for were addressed. The salad bar was consistently full, and they actually advanced the plan of that concept of a burrito bowl. They actually moved that out early, where you had the rice and the chicken and the vegetables and the various things that kids can create. So we're pleased to see that response.
And there was French toast at lunch, which made my kids very happy.
And the sea lunch is getting enough food? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
And draft surveys have been provided for us to review after some feedback. Those surveys will be sent to students and families, so that's happening.
Great.
Does the contract with Fresh Picks require meeting with students once a month?
There is a health advisory committee that meets once a month, and Fresh Picks absolutely is a participant in that. Yeah, and I believe the students are there regularly as well. Susan Grabowski is also on that.
Oh, from the high school and BAMS?
Yes,
Yeah.
and the elementary schools.
And the elementary?
Yeah.
Great.
And so there's also a monitor on site assessing food for the third group of students.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Moving on to new business, we have the following policies presented for a first reading. C9, non-discrimination, D11, public complaints of personnel, and F2, bus discipline. We'll welcome any comments. You know, you can email any one of us, all of us. Deborah's chair of the policy committee. You know, any comments?
At the SD level.
Yes, but we do it together most.
Although the SU loves the work that the policy committee does.
Yes, we
At the SD level. I just want to put a plug in there.
And do we have any public comment on non-agenda items? Seeing none.
Madam Chair, there
Yeah.
being no further business before this board, I move we adjourn.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Don't go there.
And we are adjourned at 7:35 PM. Thank you very, very much,
Thank
everybody.
you. All right, I'm making a run for it.
Go for it.